We're here for another session of this Add Beats to Your Thread, which is about yoga philosophy. I think this is our third or fourth session, and in the previous sessions we talked about what yoga is and what's the objective of practicing yoga. And then we also moved into the 8 limbs of yoga, and limbs of yoga are just another way of helping us to practice yoga in to practice yoga. So just to kind of revise very quickly, very briefly, you'll find this in other videos, so it's great if you've never been to this session before to have a check in the videos that we have uploaded on our YouTube channel, which are from the sessions previous to this one, to understand a little bit the sequence of to be in the context of things. Yoga is all about just bringing awareness into ourselves, being awareness into how we live our life, being awareness how we think, our behaviors, how we feel, is all about bringing awareness. And there are different tools to do that. Some tools are the yoga practice, some tools are meditation, some tools are breathing exercises, pranayama, some tools are different styles of yoga, be it either Ashtanga, Vinyasa, Iyengar, Yin, or even there is other things like Kriya Yoga, Karma Yoga, which are different branches of the yoga practice. Inside of yoga, which is kind of a huge universe, there is something called the 8 limbs of yoga, which is kind of a step-by-step to give us some guidance and some orientation and to give us some structure to learn more about ourselves, to learn more about our patterns, to learn more about what changes we need to bring in life in order to feel better or make changes in our lives and so on. And there are 8 limbs, or the first 5 limbs has to do with practical things that we can actually do. And the 3 last limbs are more to do with a spiritual practice, not so much about doing much, but more about being. The first 5 limbs are the yamas, niyamas, pratyahara, pranayama, and asana. Yama is to do with our social discipline, with the way that we behave with our environment, and husbands and children and so on. Niyamas is the way we deal with our inner world, with ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, how we treat ourselves. Then we have pranayama, which is breathing exercises. We have asana, which is the physical postures that we do, the warrior ones, the down dogs and all of that. And pratyahara, which is a form of meditation where we do withdrawing of the senses. So we kind of look within and do some self-inquiry and so on. We were talking about the yama, the first limb, because even though there is all these 8 limbs to go through, it doesn't really mean that we can only move to the next one once we are masters or once we've done well in that one that we're working on. They all kind of come at the same time. We're all working on them at the same time. And we in combination, all of them, we work on them all in combination. And yama, inside of yama, which is the social discipline, we have ahimsa, we have satya, we have asteya, we have brahmacharya, and then we have aparigraha. And all of them refer to specific things. Ahimsa refers to non-violence. So we already looked into non-violence. We even read some of the sutra in the Yoga Sutras book, which is very well known. Ahimsa is to do with non-violence. Non-violence not only through through physical violence, but also through words and through the way that we actually speak with others or treat others, and so on. And you know, the reason why it's something we need to bring awareness to our non-violence, it's obviously because it doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit us, and it doesn't benefit anyone around. So we need to bring more awareness when we are being violent towards ourselves or towards others. Satya is truth. Truth, speaking our truth, doing the things that are really meaningful, that are true to us. From the moment we start to get distracted with the things that are not really true to us, we start to become someone we are not. We start to move away from the real self. And, you know, more often than not, unfortunately, most of us with life sometimes end up being someone we are not. And sometimes there are situations we don't even know who we are anymore. We've kind of lived so much under a certain image or under a certain pretense that we don't even know anymore who we are. Or we've kind of dedicated so much our life doing something for other people or being connected to other people that after we forget who we are, what is what are our passions, what we like, what we don't like, and so on. And then we have asteya. Asteya, it is non-stealing. And stealing is obviously physical objects and all of that, of course. But it's also about, and we talked about this, I think, 2 sessions ago, energy, stealing people's energy. So in a work environment, this happens a lot. In a work environment, we sometimes are overloaded with work. We have a lot of things, a lot going on. And so we end up kind of getting other people involved in our dramas. We get other people, we go to other people a bit like, oh, you know, can you help me with this? You know, I really need this done. And we kind of become a bit like selfish. So non-stealing is to do with more than just, you know, stealing a car or stealing something. And then we have brahmacharya, which is non-excess. And here excesses is for everything: working too much, eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, having too much sex, whatever it is, that it is in excess. Sleeping too much, not sleeping enough. And you know, I should have mentioned that yama means holding in, holding back. It's kind of a restraint, but of not giving in. And we have so many temptations around us in the society that the Yoga Sutras helps us to stay focused and helps us to ground ourselves in not giving in to the temptations. And it's a great example with brahmacharya in terms of non-excess, avoiding the non-excesses in terms of food or drink or whatsoever that is happening in your life. And then we have aparigraha. Aparigraha is non-attachment. We tend to attach our happiness to things exterior to us. We are only happy if we have our mobile phone with us because it keeps us motivated. We are happy if we have this many clothes or that Yves Saint Laurent handbag, or we are happy if we actually go on holidays to a sunny location, or we are happy if we actually have this thing or that thing or this job or that type of social life, and so on. So aparigraha relates to the attachment that we have to anything that is exterior to us, and we attach our happiness to that. And if we don't have those things, could be material or could be work related or could be even relationships. If we don't have them, we are unhappy. And yoga brings that awareness, you know, what are we putting our happiness into, we are putting our happiness into a mobile phone or into a person. This happens a lot sometimes when we get into relationships or friendships or even at work. We put our happiness into that person's hands. So what we are doing now, we've done it in the last session, we're going to do it again, is read the definition from Patanjali, from the book, which gives us very often very good examples, very good perspectives on the limbs, on the different limbs. So we've done the truth. Last week, I don't think we finished it. No, we finished the truth last week. So we're going to go now for Asteya, which is non-stealing. If we want to become the world's richest people, this is a very simple way. There is no need to get into the stock market or even to go to work. Just practice non-stealing. All of us are thieves. Knowingly and unknowingly, we steal things from nature. With every minute, with every breath, we pick nature's pocket. Whose air do we breathe? It is nature's. But that doesn't mean we should stop breathing and die. Instead, we should receive each breath with reverence and use it to serve others. Then we are not stealing. If we accept it and don't give anything in return, we are thieves. We steal because of greed. We want to do little and get a lot. Many people go to the office and just sit around, use the phone to make their own appointments all day, take free supplies from the supply room, and accept their paycheck at the end of the week. Aren't they stealing that money? Do we not also steal other people's ideas? If we are completely free from stealing and greed, contented with what we have, and if we keep serene minds, all wealth comes to us. If we do not run after it, before long, it runs after us. If nature knows we aren't greedy, she gains confidence in us, knowing we will never hold her for ourselves. But normally, when we get something, we tend to lock it away and put the keys in the safe place. We tend to imprison our possessions, whether money, property, or even people. The moment we try to imprison money, for example, it feels, what is this? I want free movement. They have made me round so I could roll. But here I am locked up. Oh, I've come to the wrong person. The moment I get the chance, I'll roll away. Some stingy people never open their vaults. The money just sits inside and prays, please, somebody release me. Inevitably, the prayer is heard by a robber who comes to the rescue. So it's really interesting, this first part of the explanation of non-stealing, where Patanjali is actually using this comparison analogy, it's called analogy, where the money is round, he's talking about the coins. The money is round and the money wants to be free because the money moves from people to people, from place to place, and sometimes there's a lot of money, sometimes there isn't so much money. And the money wants to be free, but then we lock the money into safes, we lock the money into places because we are so attached to money. But as soon as we are so attached to money, we're more likely to lose it much quicker. And then hence why he then talks about the robber that comes to rescue the money. Instead, if we have the attitude, if you want to come, come, when you want to go, go, everything will say, why do you push me away? Let me stay with you. Don't send me away. I experienced this myself. I never lock up anything. Things just come and stay. Even if I tell them to go, they beg to be with me. We can all see this situation with babies. They come to us, play, sit in our laps, but the moment they want to go, if we try to hold them, they become bored. What is this? I made a mistake coming here. And they run away. The next time we call them, they'll think, I don't want to come. Those people just keep me with them. Instead, if we just allow the babies to leave when they want, they'll certainly come to us again. Another way of stealing things is by not letting others use them. Suppose we own 1,000 acres of land, most of which we don't use. If there are people who want to buy 100 acres and we don't let them, we are stealing its usage. If someone has 50 garments in his closet and his neighbor doesn't have even one, the first person is stealing the second usage. Because certain people have the buying power to make a lot of purchases, they raise prices for poor people, people who don't have much money. If anyone merely bought for their own necessity, goods would be left over in stores and prices would come down. The whole world's economy is based on this. In the US, I have heard that thousands of tons of wheat and potatoes are dumped into the ocean to keep the market in a proper condition. I don't know how long when this happened, but the land belongs to everyone. A person in a corner of Australia is just as much an equal owner of the land as anyone else. What is this grown in the United States can be first given to its citizen with a surplus, divided among everyone else. So this is the social injustice that we see very often in the world in many ways, not only with food or clothes, but other things. So we're going to jump, because now he goes on into talk about as well some government situations in India. What I want to read is the end part. By all this, we can see richness has nothing to do with monetary wealth. The richest person is the one with a cool mind, free of tension and anxiety. Changing all these world situations is not in our hands. We are not going to stop all these things. But what is in our hands is the ability to find joy and peace right here, right now. If we live in the present, even though the whole world might blow up in a minute, it won't bother us. We can be happy in situations of tension. If we have decided to be happy, nobody can make us unhappy. Anything might happen. An earthquake might decimate the entire world. But we do not need to bother about the future, nor should we worry about the past. It has already gone. To be happy this minute is in our hands. And then he carries on. We are not going to change the world, and so on. And here is the stealing part goes back to, it's very much interlinked with the attachment we have to things. You know, if we are attached to a very expensive car, then of course when anyone does a scratch in the car or you have an accident, it's like a huge panic because you're so attached to the monetary value, to the money that you spend on the car and so on. And it's not about not having things here, it's nothing like that, but it's the attachment that we have to things. And then we go to Brahmacharya, which is the continence, you know, by one establishing continence, vigor is gained. So it is to do with non-excess. By getting established incontinence or celibacy, and here when we talk about celibacy is not like, you know, you can't have a partner, you can't have sex, nothing like that. When they mention celibacy in yoga is in terms of energy, in terms of how much energy are you spending on sex and are you managing your energy properly. So very often the celibacy word can be misleaded, can be misunderstood. And I just wanted to make sure that it's not about not having sex, but it's more about managing your energy in terms of sex. So by getting established in continence or celibacy, we save energy. Virya means vital energy. Labha means profit. When there is no loss or virya, we gain energy. What we gain by this saving, it's worth nothing, knowing. In the name of loving and giving, many times we lose this energy and become mentally and physically depleted. If we are not strong mentally and physically, we can never gain real spiritual wealth. The main cause for the present chaotic condition among the young is ignorance about viriya. Young people say, when you love somebody, how can you stop giving? But out of love, they do not know what to give. Sometimes they even give venereal disease. They lose their health and spoil the health of the ones they love. Can you say you love me and completely drain my blood and poison my system? No. If you love a child, you will make him eat a box of candy. That isn't love. It is mere thoughtlessness. If you really love the child, you would say, candy is not good for you. Once in a while you can have some, but I won't buy you the entire box. So this is the excess on the eating that we talked about before. And then he obviously talks about the, the sexual activities in the youngs. So yeah, so he goes on it gives many examples of excess. I think excess is actually one of the things that we in the Western world relate a lot, because we all have gone through situations in our life where we either eat too much or sleep too much or party too much or work too much. We've all done that. And very often is when you start to practice yoga and start to have a regular yoga practice, be it meditation or mantra singing or practicing the physical poses that we do in the studio. Once you start to have a consistent practice, you start to notice your excesses, your exaggerations. And also very often, the days that you come to yoga are probably the days where you feel healthy and you don't want to excess in anything. So I'll just give you an example. So when I started practicing yoga, if I was going to yoga Saturday morning, most of the time was Saturday morning, if I would go to yoga Saturday morning, when I was getting home to have my lunch and then the rest of the afternoon and so on, I really wanted to cook something healthy and, you know, have proper food during the day. If I was not going to go to yoga, I would just kind of eat whatever, didn't really care. You know, there is this feeling you've done I used to do a 90-minute class on Saturday morning, 90-minute hot power yoga. It was really intense, but at the same time, I felt really healthy and I felt really good about myself. So I'd never really felt like going and eating crap or then sitting in front of the sofa and just eat snacks and watch TV all afternoon. So sometimes yoga in the beginning can be almost like a way of escape. You know, you're escaping without knowing, but you're kind of escaping to falling on the traps of the excess, of the overeating, over sleeping, procrastinating, and so on. And to be honest with you, I have a better example. I used to work in a hotel close to Heathrow, and I was living in central London, so it took me 2 hours door to door. But to go to yoga before I would go home, and yoga was kind of not far from where I was living in central London, I would need to leave work exactly the latest, 4:30, go and get changed 4:30. But sometimes things would happen and so on, and then it would be 4:45, and I would be like, okay, this is too late. And it's true, it was too late. And, I knew I wouldn't be able to make it to the class, and then I wouldn't be going to the class anymore. And the one later would be too late because I obviously had to get up very early to go to work. So, so what happened the first few times is like, okay, I did manage once or twice. I went, and then they didn't let me in because I was late for the class. Of course, it's understandable. So after that, I didn't even try anymore. From the moment I saw it was 4:45, I just thought there's no point in going because I'm not going to make it to yoga. But the bad thing, and I was with a lot of issues at that time, the bad thing is that I wouldn't go home as well. I would stay at work. And that was usually the time where we used to go to the canteen to have dinner, especially people coming for the late shift. They would go to the canteen to have dinner. And what would I do? I would go to the canteen and stuff myself with food. Internally, I would be either pissed off because I couldn't make it to yoga, or I would just, I did a lot of overeating, emotional eating back in those days. And that was what would happen. I would be like, okay, well, I'm not going to make it to yoga now, annoying, but I'll just go and eat before I go home. But then I would eat a bit too much. Sometimes I would work a bit more, sometimes I would just go home. So for me, even yoga in those times was really like, okay, I need to go, because if I stay, I'm going to end up overeating, eating too much, feeling bad about myself, and it's not good. So Brahmacharya can be one of the links that we can relate a lot, the non-excess limb, because of all of these. We all do at some point in our lives. We do emotional eating or emotional drinking or workaholic or any excess to compensate a lack of something. Very often it is a lack of love for ourselves. But in the superficie, in the surface, it comes across as it's not that it comes across. In the surface, the lack that we think we have is either loneliness or stress, or feeling anxious or feeling sad. So in the surface, we're like, yeah, I know I'm not happy. I know that, things in my life are not the best. I know that I would like this or I would like that, and I don't have it. And we know that we end up reaching out for the alcohol or for the drinks or for the food or for working too much, because we are replacing something we are missing on the other side. When we start to do a bit more inner work, and when we start to do more yoga, understand better, how things work with ourselves, who we are, and all of that, then we start to understand that actually the bottom line is that we don't love ourselves enough. And this sometimes can be difficult to understand and to grasp if you're someone that you're quite confident in your body, confident at work, confident with people, quite extrovert, quite talkative, quite sociable. You like to look after yourself, you like to dress nicely, you like to do things. And sometimes, and I raise my hand, I talk from experience, it's really difficult to understand how the challenges with excess and all of those things come from a place of not loving ourselves, not loving the oneself. Because externally everything shows, or everything seems to tick the boxes of someone that loves themselves. But the reality is that all these unbalances, all these excesses, all these not speaking our truth, all these of being violent, I was a very violent person verbally, not physically, verbally to myself and to others. So all of those, they are there, they are just signs. And what yoga does through the different practices, we start to be more aware. And that's what happened to me. I started practicing yoga, I started noticing things, and then I did my teacher training, and that kind of made the light bulb moment, kind of awakened everything, made everything a lot more clear. So the different practices of yoga will start to bring awareness to how you're behaving, why you're behaving. Sometimes we don't know why. Sometimes we don't know straight away what happened, how it happened, and so on. And that's a process in itself. And that's it. So today we finished, it's 6:30. We've gone through most limbs of the yamas. Next week, we're going to cover aparigraha, which is non-attachment. We already touched a little bit. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Urzu.